Hey Knights! So this is the next two chapters for the I Landed in the World of Black Butler. Chapter 26, Seal's Point of View. I had a new case, but decided it would be best to leave Celine at home because she had been feeling sick the last few days. Sebastian was really worried about her, but he came with me nonetheless. I don't think he was happy with the thought of leaving Celine in the care of Finny, Bard, and Mayron, which I can't really blame him. I was a little worried about leaving her in their hands as well after seeing Finny knock over that man and hurting him, but I was sure nothing bad was going to happen to her if she just stayed in her room in bed like she had promised Sebastian and myself. As we were sitting on the train, I was thinking about the transies and what they did exactly for the Queen. Sebastian and I talked about it, but I could tell he was worried about Celine as well. Sebastian, do you think that Celine might be very ill? I asked as I looked at him. It had been a few days since we had taken that photo, which Celine had been very happy about. She had kissed my cheek several times, much to my surprise. I hope not, my lord. I really hope not, Sebastian says before we start talking about the transies in the case once again. Celine's point of view. I had gotten sick a day or two after we had taken the pictures, and I was really tired. I didn't blame Seal for leaving me behind, and I knew what was happening, so I wasn't too worried about that, because Sebastian would do a good job of keeping everyone safe. I could hear banging, then some yelling, letting me know that the others were home from dropping Seal off at the train station. I was getting very thirsty and thought some tea might help settle my stomach. So I get out of bed and I pull a bathrobe tightly around me before walking slowly down to the kitchen. I know I promised them I wouldn't leave the room, but there were things I needed and the others didn't know what room I was staying in. Celine, Sebastian told us to keep you in bed, Finny says when he sees me and runs over before picking me up. I know, Finny, but I'm thirsty and would like some tea or water, I say as I lay my head on his chest as he carries me to a chair that was in the kitchen. Tanaka walks over before placing a hand on my head, then shaking his own. Bard and Mayron walked over, worry on their faces. I'm fine, really. I just want some water before I go back to bed, I say as they look me over. After a few minutes of all of them fussing over me, I was given a cup of water, with them watching me drink before getting me another one. I stand and walked back to my room, but I knew I was being followed by Finny, who cared a lot about me. I think in many ways I might be the little sister he never had. I stopped walking and turned to look at Finny. I can make it back to my room just fine, Finny.
Good night.
Night. That was weird.
He never does that.
Where was I? Sister he never had. I stopped walking and turned to look at Finny. I can make it back to my room just fine, Finny. I will more than likely be sleeping through dinner, so don't worry about making me any, I say as I give him a smile. Finny shakes his head and puts a hand to his face, wiping at his eyes. He had been crying. Celine, I am really worried about you, so I want to take you to a doctor. Will you come with me to see him? Finny asks, and I give a small smile. Let's not tell Sebastian or Seal about this. Let me change and we can go. Wait here for me, I say, and give him a smile. Finny nods his head, a wide smile on his face as he sits on the floor to wait for me. I change quickly, then walk back to where Finny was waiting. Bard and Mayron were sitting there as well, and I shake my head a little. I had put on flats, not too happy with the idea of heels. What happened to it being just the two of us? I asked Finny in a playful tone, which makes him blush a little. We were all worried about you, and we all planned this out, so we want to come with you, Bard says as they stand up. I shake my head and lean a little on the wall, feeling a little dizzy. Finny was up and by my side in a flash before picking me up. I'll carry Celine, so don't worry about it, Finny says as he walks down to the carriage that was waiting, and Tonica was holding the door open for us. Bard ends up driving us there. We had to stop a few times so I could throw up, but after that I was fine. When we got to the doctor's, I got into the room with Mayron because I didn't want the doctor to think Finny, Bard, or Tonica were married to me because of my ring. We have to run a few tests to see what you have, the doctor says as he takes my blood for the third or fourth time. I didn't really care because I thought I had the flu and it would be gone in a few more days. As we wait for the results to come back, Mayron played with my hair and hummed a song, which was making me sleepy. Congratulations, miss. You're with child, the doctor says, and then I pass out. Sebastian's point of view. After the train ride today, I wanted nothing more than to relax with my wife, who is sick. When we get back to the manor, the young master and I walk out to my room, only to find it empty. I was a little panicked that she had been taken, just like the transy's butler said he would take her. We walked to the young master's study, and he sits there with a worried look on his face. I decided that I would give him the letter tomorrow, not thinking I should worry him with it now. I could hear the doors opening downstairs and footsteps walking up the hall. Find out where Celine is, the young master says before waving me away. I walk out of his study as I was walking to the kitchen, I see Finny carrying Celine, who looks like she had fainted. I rushed down to them, and they all stopped what they were doing, guilty looks on their faces. Where did you take Celine? I asked as I looked them over, and none of them would keep eye contact with me. We took her to see a doctor, Bard finally says before rubbing the back of his head. Really? And who played her husband? I asked, a little mad that they had taken my wife in without me. Mayrin went in with her alone, Sebastian, because Celine asked us to have it that way. Mayrin is the only one besides Celine who knows the results of her test, Finny says as I take Celine from him. Mayrin, what did the doctor said? I asked, wanting to know what was wrong with my wife. Well, Sebastian, he said, congratulations, miss, you're with child, Mayrin says before blushing, and I was sure I looked shocked. So did the others, and I didn't know what to do with Celine right now. But it all made sense, and the timing was right. But now was a bad time for her to have a child, when Trancy and his butler were after her. Don't let Celine know that you told the others or myself, I say before carrying her up to her room, not giving them a chance to say anything. I put her down in bed before taking off her shoes and changing her clothes before pulling the blankets tight around her. It would be winter again soon, and I wanted to keep her warm so she didn't get sicker than she already was. I kissed the top of her head before walking to the young master's study. You found her, then? He asks, without looking up from what he was doing. Yes, my lord. It would appear the others were worried about her and took her to see a doctor. They don't know what he said because she fainted after hearing the results, I say, which makes him look at me. You're lying, Sebastian. What did the doctor say? The young master asks. I shake my head, not really wanting to tell him. Celine is with child, I say slowly, and he jumps from his chair. With child? But Sebastian, she can't be, he says as he looks at me in shock. I chuckle and nod my head. She can, and is. Don't worry so much, my young master. She is a strong woman, and this will not affect our deal, I say. He nods before motioning to a box that was by his desk. Finny said this arrived when we were gone. I haven't opened it yet, he said. I walked over to it, opening it to see pictures we had taken and handing them to the young master to look through. Sebastian, she looks lovely in her dress, and she is so very happy, the young master says before turning the last picture in his hands, so I could see it clearly. I'm sure she will love it, I say, before helping him put them all into frames. Once I put him in bed, I walk up to my room to see Celine sitting up, a dazed look in her eyes, and then they widen with surprise when she sees me. Mayrin told you, didn't she? She asks, a few tears falling down her face. I walked over to her and picked her up out of the bed before sitting her in my lap. She did, and I'm so very happy, I say, as I kiss her tear-streaked cheek. Me too, Celine says, before laying her head on my shoulder, and falling back asleep. Chapter 27. Celine's Point of View. I was feeling much better now, and went with Sebastian to see Soma and Nangi to tell them about Seal's memory loss. Needless to say, he was in shock, and just about lost it when we told him. We headed back home after Sebastian explained things to them, and he holds me close to him. Ever since we found out about the baby a few weeks ago, he hasn't let me out of his sight, and was being overprotective. Sebastian had created a costume for me so that no one would know who I was but him. I was allowed to walk in the front door with Seal because of the fact that I was playing handmaiden tonight, meaning I was helping Seal change into his costume. Before we got out of the carriage, Sebastian and Seal both looked at me. Stay close to us tonight. I don't need Sebastian looking all over for you, sick with worry, Seal says. I will, Seal, and I'll stay close to Lizzie as well, so no need to worry about the both of us, I say, before giving him a big smile. Before Sebastian can knock on the door, Claude opens the door, welcoming us. I jump when I see the spider over the door and grab onto Sebastian's arm tightly. It's all right, the thing is up there and you're safe here, Sebastian says in a calming tone, as Claude watches me with an amused smile on his face, before explaining that spiders are on the coat of arms for the Trancy family, so they don't kill them. Seal falls back into Sebastian, and we head up the drawing room. Seal looks over at me, a little worried because he knew that too much stress on the baby could hurt it, so he took my arm as we walked. He lets me go before we walk into the drawing room, and Sebastian pulls me back a little as Lizzie runs over to hug Seal. I follow behind him, holding on to Sebastian, because I knew this place was crawling with spiders, but had to push that thought out of my mind as I watched what was going on. It was funny that Seal remembered me and things I had done with him and Sebastian outside of cases. But he didn't remember Soma or Angie or that Madame Red had died. Lou almost gave it away, and seeing the look he had, I take half a step back into Sebastian, who holds me in place so I didn't get hurt by Soma. I start to sway a little, not being able to handle all the excitement. Celine, Seal asks, worry in his voice as he grabs my hand. Seal's point of view. Celine was swaying on her feet a little, but Sebastian put his hands on her waist to steady her. But I don't think she could feel them, so I grab her hands. Celine, I ask, knowing worry was leaking out in my tone, and everyone in the room goes quiet. I'm fine, Seal, just a little dizzy is all, she says, a small fake smile on her lips, and Sebastian guides her over to a couch, which Elizabeth and I sit on next to her. Seal, is Celine all right? Elizabeth asks as she looks over her with worry. I was even surprised when Lau and the weird prince had worried looks on their faces as well. She's fine, Lady Elizabeth. This happens often now, Sebastian says as he stands behind Celine in case she got sick, because when she got dizzy, she would sometimes throw up. Sebastian said it was part of her morning sickness and would get better or worse as her pregnancy went on. Young master, we should head back to your room to get ready for the party, Sebastian says as he helps Celine from her seat, and we follow some triplets to my room. I give Sebastian an order to look around the house, but keep Celine close to me because I didn't need this transie to know of her condition just yet. When we get to my room, I grab Celine's hand and pull her over to the bed, then pointing at it. Take a nap until it's time to get ready, I say, and she gives a small sigh as she sits on the bed. Celine's point of view. Seal wakes me up after my nap, and I help him get ready before we wait for Sebastian. He insisted that he change me into my costume, and when he dresses me, I look a little like a crow, which I find funny considering he was. You look lovely in that, Celine. I don't think even Elizabeth will know who you are, Seal says as we walk together down to the party. Not much later it starts, and Lizzie walks over before putting a feather in Seal's hat. I smile as I see the others' costumes, and then Lizzie finally looks over at me. Seal, who's that? She asks as she gets closer to me. Lizzie, you know who I am, I say before giving a chuckle. She smiles brightly at me, then grabs my hand. I was worried about you when you left with Seal and Sebastian. Are you really all right, Celine? Lizzie asks, and I nod my head. I look over at the three servants and shake my head before standing a little closer to Seal. They're going to make a mess, I mumble, and Seal looks up at me. What did you say? He asks, and I give him a small smile. Nothing, Seal. Say, would you like to get some fresh air, Lizzie? Some fresh air? Lizzie can come with us if you like, I ask, because I was feeling too warm in this place. Seal looks me over before nodding, understanding that I was starting to feel sick. Before we even started to walk, there were crashes all around, and we see Bard, Finny, and Mayron messing up. I told him, I think, as I look at Seal, who wasn't too happy. I was about to pull Seal out when a girl bumps into him, spilling wine on him. Don't go alone, I say before he can walk off, and he nods before grabbing my hand. You said you wanted some air, so come along. You're my handmaid, after all, Seal says before giving me a smile. I nod and let him pull me along behind him. But when we get to the room, the girl looks at me. I'm sorry, but you can't come in with us, she says, and I knew from those eyes that it was Chansey. She's allowed to come anywhere with me, Seal says before pulling on my hand a little. But she punches at me. Tell her to go back to the party, so she doesn't get hurt, Chansey says, and Seal gives me a weird look. I'll go stay with Lizzie and the others. I'm sure Sebastian will find you just fine, I say, before giving him a smile that said trust me. Seal nods, and I turn before walking back in the direction the party was, only to see Claude standing at the end of the hall waiting for me. You shouldn't wander around the house, Claude says, thinking I was one of the other party guests. I'm sorry, I got a little lost on the way to the bathroom, I mumble as we walk past him, and once I was out of eyesight, ran to where Soma and the others were. Lizzie grabs my arm and pulls me closer to herself. Celine, are you feeling better? She asks, and Soma looks me over with worry. I'm fine, really. What makes you all think I'm not? I ask before looking over at Finny, Bard, and Mayron, who look away with guilty faces. What did you three tell them? You know it's a secret, right? I ask as I walk closer to them. We didn't tell them anything, we promise, Finny says. And I relax a little, not wanting the others to know about my baby, just yet, or ever. They start to talk about that bread Sebastian had made, and I shake my head a little, now really needing some fresh air badly. I was going to walk outside, but Lizzie's hands on my arm stopped me. Where are you going, Celine? She asks, and I give her a smile. I'm going to go outside for a view. It's a little too warm for me with all these people, I say before giving her a reassuring smile. I get outside in time to see Seal running off some doors, and I was about to follow him when I feel cold hands on my neck stopping me. I wouldn't move, little crow, or you might die, Claude says, and I relax so he won't hurt me. He chuckles a little before running a hand down my shoulder and putting one of his hands in mine. Come, I have a feeling I might need your help convincing Seal Phantomhive to do the right thing, Claude says as he pulls me behind him. Claude's point of view. It was pure luck I found a party guest outside when I was on my way to help my master. I would use her to get what I wanted, which was that girl he keeps hidden away. If I had her, then Seal would be more willing to do as my master asks of him. I quickly tie her hands together, but not too tight because I really don't know who she is. I tie her to a tree not too far from where my master and Seal were talking, and I appear to help him. I look over at the girl, knowing that if Nicholas sees her, then he might be more persuasive with his master. Too bad it looks like it was going to become a fight, so my master has me bring over the girl, who hasn't said a word since I grabbed her. Seal looked a little paler when she sees her, and I couldn't understand why. Give me the girl, Seal says as he looks away from my master to her. I was starting to wonder if this was the girl he was protecting so fiercely, but why? Nicholas chuckles a little before looking at his master. You shouldn't worry so much, young master. I'm sure she can free herself at any time. Isn't that right, my lady? He asks. And the girl gives a small nod before her hands swing out at my master, and I block it only for her to smile and flip over to Phantomhive and Nicholas. I gave you an order, and you didn't listen to me, Seal snaps at the girl, and she shakes her head a little. You told me to stay close to you or Sebastian, not anyone else. How can I follow orders if you're not where you should be? She says in a sweet voice. I wanted this girl as much as I wanted Seal Phantomhive's soul. Sebastian's point of view. Celine had a point when she asked that question, but I didn't want her to get hurt at all. Trancy, let this girl go back to the party. She has nothing to do with this, the young master says, and Celine shakes her head as if knowing she did. I had been teaching her to fight in the last few weeks, knowing something like this might happen, and I couldn't protect my wife, child, and master all at the same time. I look over at my wife, who had this hate-filled look on her face that was quite bothersome, to say the least, and it was aimed at Trancy and his butler, which I'm guessing means she doesn't like them very much. If she can get past Claude and myself, then she can go, Trancy says in a very childish manner, making me think those triplets will attack her if she tries. My lady, would you be so kind as to do as I told you? I ask, and she looks over at me before down at Seal, a little uncertain, but nods nonetheless. I look back up at Claude, who has a hungry look in his eyes, as he looks my wife over. She takes a step to her back until her foot is on the trunk of a tree before running at Trancy, and when she was a breath away from him, puts her hands on his head before flipping over Claude, not being able to touch her because he hadn't been expecting the sudden move from her. Now that she was out of the way, I could focus on the fight at hand. Once we escape from him, I see Celine leaning against a tree, using it to help hold her up. The young master gets out of my hold and walks over to her. Are you all right? He asks, just as she leans over, throwing up. I rush over to her side and pat her back gently, like I had been doing the last few days. When she was done, I wipe her mouth and look her over. Celine's point of view. You did very good. Next time might not be so lucky, Sebastian says as he cleans my face a little. I feel Seal sit on the ground behind me and lean against the tree. I put my hands over my ears before Sebastian even says anything and gives me a sly smile when he sees this. I was still amazed at how Sebastian could fight without his hands, and Seal started to give him orders, which makes me shake my head a little. The sound hurt my ears a lot more than anyone else, I think, and Sebastian could tell from the pained look on my face. I follow Sebastian closely as he runs to the house, and as he runs, pulls out his gloves while holding Seal. Give him to me, I snap as I put my hands down and reach out for Seal. My lady, I would feel better if you keep your hands over your ears, Sebastian says. But I pull Seal from him, and once in the trancy manner, he heads off to get what he needs. To counter that god-awful sound. I put Seal down and let him go back to the party, knowing I was going to become sick again. Celine, Seal asks, and I shake my head a little. Go listen to Sebastian play. I'll be in soon, I say, giving him a smile. He nods and walks inside as I walk over to a tree, not too far away, before throwing I up again. Once I was done, I walk inside and over to Seal and Sebastian. Trancy walks in, and Sebastian grabs my hand, pulling me behind him, as if to shield me from them. I understood perfectly what this means. Claude wants me, and Sebastian doesn't like to share his things, no matter what or who they are. After getting his orders, Sebastian looks over his shoulder at me. Milady, please stay close to the young master and his friends until I return, Sebastian says, giving me a close-eyed smile. Always, Master Butler, I say, returning his smile, and he chuckles a little chuckles a little at my reply. I didn't want Sebastian to go, knowing he was going to make a deal with Claude that would backfire at a moment's notice. So I stand by Seal as he watches people dance until Alois walks over to us and looks at me. May I have this dance? He asks as he offers me his hands. I shake my head no and look away from him. What is your problem, girl? You should dance with any male suitor, Alois says, a sneer on his face. Not if she is married or betrothed. Come, Celine, I think Elizabeth wants to talk with you, Seal says as he offers me his arm so we could walk over to where the others are. Once we were over there, they put Seal in a chair and offered him the curry bread. The smell of it made me feel sick, and I turned away, so if I had to run, they wouldn't see why. I walked a few steps away, willing myself not to be sick, and felt a little better. I watched Seal for a little while longer, until Sebastian shows up, that rose in his jacket, and I shake my head, unhappy with the way things go, like I always was when I watched the show. Sebastian's point of view. Lady Elizabeth was dancing with Alois, and I take the chance to look over at Celine, who is leaning against the wall, an unhappy look on her face. Claude starts walking over to her, so I walk to her faster. She smiles a little at me when I offer her my hand, which she takes without a second thought. I wish you didn't do that, she mumbled as we danced, and I give her a confused look before a small knowing smile spreads across my face. I'm sorry, my lady. It was the only way to protect him, I say as I pull her out to dance, which she didn't know how to do right, but I let her put her feet on mine, so I did all the work. Kiss Sarah, Sarah. Whatever will be, Celine says as she looks me in the eyes, letting me know she didn't approve at all with what had happened. I sigh a little before pulling her just a bit close to me. I'm glad that you didn't need your gloves for tonight. You have some freedom with that tonight, I say, making her shiver in my hold. That tattoo on her hand had stayed just like she promised it would. And when I changed her into a demon, her mark will be the same as mine because of it. And the fact that I used my blood, so she was the same kind of demon as I am. Once the dance was over, I led her off to the dance floor and over to where the drinks are before finding one that didn't have anything harmful for the baby in it. He likes me, and you know it. I saw the way you looked at him when he looks at me. Don't worry, I think I hate him mostly because of what he is, Celine whispers as I hand her the drink, and I give a small sigh before letting her lead me to where we should go. But we both keep an eye on the young master. The young master wants to go home soon. I think it would be best if you found a place to sit until then, I say as I sweep loose hairs off of her neck, so my mark would show. Don't think of playing any games using me, Sebastian, because it's a bad idea and you know it, she says as I lead her over to a chair, only to see Claude holding out his hand to my wife. Miss, could I have this dance? He asks, and Celine looks over her shoulder at me. Claude, there are plenty of women to dance with. Find someone else, I say before giving him a threatening look. I know there are, but I would like to get to dance with this woman first. It's not like I'm going to hurt her again, Claude says, and I could feel my blood boil. Sebastian, I don't feel too well, Celine mumbles before she starts to fall back into my chest. I chuckle as I hold her up as Claude gives me a questioning look. Claude's point of view. I only wanted one dance with that girl, and she faints. Is she going to be all right? I ask as Sebastian puts her in the chair next to him before standing behind her like he was going to protect her. She will be fine. She was sick not that long ago and is still recovering. Perhaps I shouldn't have danced with her, seeing as how she has been rather prone to dizzy spells as of late, Sebastian says before moving some hair off her neck, and I noticed some kind of mark on her neck. I see. If you wish, I could find an open room for her to sleep in, I say, wanting to have a chance at touching this girl again. I think not. The young master was very specific in his orders to me. Under no circumstances she's to be left alone in the trancey manner, unless himself or I with her, Sebastian says, a sly smile now on his face. I turn away from him because my master is calling me. I would have that girl even if I had to kill him for her. Celine's point of view. When I wake up, I was in Sebastian's arms, and I knew I was still in my dress from the party. Sebastian, I ask as I rub my eyes, and he smiles kindly at me. You fainted at the dance, and Sebastian stood over you so no one would hurt you. We just arrived home, Steele says, and he had a small frown on his face. Sebastian puts me down, and I walk over to our room before slipping my heels off and looking around. I didn't want to think of the spiders that were running around the place because I didn't need the stress. I was trying to get my dress off when Sebastian walked in and over to me. Really, my lady? Having trouble with that? He asks, and I take a few steps away from him. Take that rose off when you're alone, Sebastian. I don't like it, and you shouldn't trust Claude, I say before turning my back on him. He chuckles, then I feel his hands on my stomach in a protective manner. Yes, my lady, he says before turning me around to face him, the rose not on his jacket anymore. I yawn, and he chuckles again before helping me out of the dress and into bed. Sleep now, my lady. Tomorrow we will train for a while before talking more about how much you hate Claude Faustus, Sebastian says, and then he kisses me before laying next to me. I fell asleep as he pulls me closer to himself. Okay, so that was the next 2 chapters. I got 2 chapters left. Alrighty. Peace out, nights.